Welcome to Light Over Heat with Professor David Yamani. I'm at the headquarters of Active Self-Protection, one of the biggest and most influential, and I would say most important companies working in the self-defense space today. And I'm really excited to have the opportunity to turn the tables on John Correia, someone who's been very influential in my own work and understanding. I'm going to ask him some questions today, so stay tuned. So here I am, Active Self-Protection headquarters, speaking with John Correia. John and I first met in 2017 when he was at the old headquarters. Lots changed since then.
What he means by that is he met me in my old house, in my old home office, and now we're in my new house in my home office.
True. At the time, you had a mere 600,000 followers on YouTube. You're also still working in vocational ministry as you were transitioning out at the time. And so quite a bit has changed in those 7 years plus. And I guess my first question is, what's the draw? What are these millions of people coming to you for?
Well, I think I'd be lying if I said that some of them weren't interested in violence porn. And I don't like that. But some people are just drawn to the macabre. There are whole websites out there of violence that exist too. So there's some of that. I think that I do get some people that they get that they're there maybe for schadenfreude, that they love the videos when the bad guy loses, when the good guy wins. And I'm telling you, if I wanted to grow the channel, what I would do is I would do nothing but catalog good guy wins. And I could probably do that if I wanted to, but it's just not real life. And so, but I think the majority of people, I would say the strong majority of people are there because what we provide for them is a daily mental rep. I would say, Lord, get me through today without needing to defend myself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially. But if today's the day I have to, may I do well. And I think a lot of people are there for that, for those lessons. I think that what we have provided and what we do and we continue to do every day, 10 years now we've been making video content, is we provide people a insight into how real criminal violence actually looks, which is quite different than John Wick. And I think a lot of people's understanding is the movies, and television, and it's just so inaccurate because, of course, that's scripted for impact and not for reality. So we provide a real look and we give the best research-informed advice we can. I've worked diligently before 2017, but really since then, when I quit my job, it opened up my schedule, and I have worked diligently since the beginning of 2018 to be as qualified as I possibly can and to give the very best advice that we can. And because of that, I know that we get emails every week that we've helped people, we've saved lives, that people say, man, John, I did what you said, and it made a difference and saved my life. Now, of course, if I gave them advice and it didn't work and they died, I wouldn't hear from that other than a Ouija board, right? So there's maybe a confirmation bias problem there.
True.
But I think we're helping.
Yeah. So, you do obviously a lot more than just, put out videos where you break down these self-defense shooting situations. So, kind of big picture, thinking across all the things you do, what's your main hope, or what's your mission, your goal?
It's funny. So if I may wax poetic just a minute, I am a person of faith. I am a follower of the way of Jesus, and I believe that in the world to come, my job will be unneeded. And my hope would be to work my way completely out of a job. I wish we lived in a world where violence didn't happen and I wasn't necessary. I will have to cross-train in the kingdom of God, and that's okay. My ultimate goal is to help good, sane, sober, moral, prudent people to make good decisions under stress so that we get ahead of the problem and then they don't get in gunfights. They don't get in fights. They don't get victimized by violent crime. And sometimes, though, it's unavoidable. The bad guy gets a vote in that too. And I say bad guy, the aggressor, the attacker gets a vote in that. But then if, God forbid, they do get in an unavoidable one, that they make good decisions. And that's the beforehand. The other side of that afterwards is through the expert witness work that we're doing, we're seeing too many good people who are prosecuted when they shouldn't be. And so then talking about afterwards, wait a minute, was this good or not good? Was this justified or not justified? And helping finders of fact, whether that's juries, or sometimes we're getting to talk to district attorneys. We're getting to educate lawyers now on, nope, this is good and pro-social violence, not anti-social violence. And so that's the ultimate goal. Get the training side and get ahead of things so that people stay away from fights. Win them if they absolutely have to. Make that number as small as possible. And then make sure that within the confines of the law, that people who do those things and do it right don't face legal consequences for it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I don't have my prop here. I was going to show my book, Uncurious, not to sell more copies, but because I think that John's work, I think John is one of the most important people working in this space. He's also one of the people who's influenced me personally most in my understanding of what it means to be a gun owner, a responsible gun owner. And it's so, he's not cited throughout the book because it's just so foundational to the book. And so...
Wow, you made my day.
Well, I mean, the truth sometimes will do that. But yeah, it is true that the ideas that you're putting out there, I think, are very much in line with how I would think a good, sane, moral, prudent person who owns a gun and has a gun to defend themselves and their family should behave. So,
good.
This is a reality that I think that a lot of people expose yourself to it. If you don't necessarily like to watch the videos breaking down the self-defense scenarios, look at the Extra channel where you've got a ton of information. There's a podcast. There's so much more to it than just 3 minutes of breaking down those videos. Although I know that's the bread and butter.
Well, I mean, that's the big thing. But you hit on the podcast, and Mike Williver, our podcast host, does an incredible job of hearing every week somebody who got into a real defensive encounter tells their story from their perspective, before, during, and after. It's fascinating stuff. When you hear it through their eyes and through their lens of experience, it's really phenomenal information. Every Friday on Active Self-Protection Extra, we do a legal and moral use of force discussion. Almost always, I bring on a bar-admitted attorney to talk about those things. Every once in a while, we've got stuff that I'm like, I don't want to bother the attorney's time with this. It's related in this particular way to things. But usually with an attorney, that's really helpful for people. And yeah, we're just doing the best we can to try to help. I say, look, we are not in our current social milieu going to repeal the Second Amendment. It ain't happening, right? You're not going to get a convention of states in 37 states to agree to that. It's just not happening. We live in a society with 400 million firearms, and that's a growing number every year. Well, I want the people to own those guns to be the very best humans they can possibly be. I want them to use them in good, sane, sober, moral, prudent ways. I want the misuse of firearms to be beyond rare because people know better, and for them to be a net social positive. I think the framers of the Constitution meant them to be a net social positive, and it's up to us to actuate that desire. So I just want to be part of that.
Yeah. So I'm in Phoenix for a symposium that was put on by the Center for the Study of Guns and Society. Jenny Carlson just founded it at Arizona State University this year. This was the inaugural symposium. And one of the sessions that was open to the public was about a book called Murder Town, USA, Gun Violence in Wilmington, Delaware, and the researchers who were trying to understand it. And John was good enough to take some time to come and check that out. And so my question to you about that is, what lessons would you take, or maybe lesson would you say that your average gun owner could take from exposing themselves to that kind of information? Because, we know guns are normal and normal people use guns. Most average normal gun owners are not part of those sort of social situations in which violence, including violence with guns, is just a part of everyday life.
Yeah.
So, what would your average responsible gun owner benefit from going and hearing this kind of information?
Yeah, I really think it was interesting that I think among their solutions wasn't gun control. That was kind of interesting to me. I was expecting at a left-leaning university and a think tank filled with mostly left-leaning folks doing, among themselves, as it were, that there would be a lot more talk of that. There wasn't. In fact, the presenters kind of pushed back on that idea a little bit. If there's one big takeaway for me, I'm a Second Amendment absolutist, and it's to get around ideas that aren't in line with what you agree with already. That you only get sharper with challenge, with discussion, with disagreement, with a challenge of why you believe what you believe. I know we've talked about this off camera, but one of my favorite recent books, is Jonathan Haidt's The Righteous Mind, and the idea of the elephant and the rider. And when I recognize that my elephant heads off into the woods too, that I think we all kind of get this idea of, well, my ideas are come about rationally and logically and soundly, and the other side, they're irrational and emotional, and so if you were just as smart as me, then you'd be better. Haidt reminded me that no, I'm just as emotional as anyone else because I'm a human being.
Right.
And it's impossible not to be. So what did that do for me? That made me say, wait a minute, when my elephant rides off into the woods and I need my rider to rein him in, I have to sit as the rider and go, ooh, my elephant did not like that argument. My elephant was frustrated at that. But wait a minute, is it right or is it wrong? Is there value here or is there not? Can I steer a little bit and try to take some value? And I really think that even if in the end you don't change your ideas, which is very possible, you've at least considered them. I take seriously as a guy. I'm not the professor you are. I mean, I taught undergrads and grads for a few years, but I love Aristotle's idea of the educated mind. That one who can entertain an idea without accepting it, right? To look at it, to kind of inspect it, to really understand it. And I really think we do a poor job of that in the modern American milieu of understanding each other.
Yeah. And I think for the everyday gun owner, these are also opportunities, to the extent that they're open to the public. Not all are, but to come in and to represent what an average everyday gun owner looks like and thinks like, and to take part in that conversation, and to think of it as a conversation and not an opportunity to score points or own the libs or whatever else you want to do. Because in the same way that
gotta give them what for.
Yeah. I mean, the same way we learn, through encountering difference, scholars can also learn from encountering difference. And if they only have perceptions of what gun owners are like or who gun owners are from watching perhaps the worst of those kinds of behaviors, that's just going to reinforce their views. And Haidt in The Righteous Mind makes the point that, with the elephant and rider, that if the rider is rationality, no individual rider can capture all of the truth.
Right.
We get closer to the truth the more different kinds of riders that we have. So you have to have diversity of viewpoint in order to actually come to better decisions, better conclusions, better understanding.
Yeah, love it.
And so, again, I know not all academic spaces are open to the public, but if you do happen to see something happening at your local university or at a community event, go there
and go to listen and learn. I went to not in a lot of spaces I go to now. I'm kind of the the alpha in the room. I hate that phraseology. I hate that terminology, but
Sure.
it's one that's approachable for people. That I'm, kind of the big dog that gets to speak. But I really love walking into rooms that instead I'm not. That I'm just going to sit here and listen and learn. These folks in this environment, masters and PhD level researchers in the topic, presenting on their research. I just want to listen and hear what you have to say. Laura, my wife, was there, and she said, they opened it up to Q&A. She's like, "Are you going to ask a question?" Nope, I'm sure not. I worried in my own soul that it would come across as gotcha or scoring points. I hate people that score points via question. So I waited until afterwards to go and talk to the presenters instead and go, "Can I help me understand this better?" And it was really valuable discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of sort of healing some of those divisions, which isn't to say we all end up agreeing in the end, but having those better conversations, recognizing each other as fellow citizens, doing it face to face is ideal. It's a lot harder to demonize someone when you're looking at them. So try to go that route also.
I think there was another interesting one. It was really valuable. So we were up talking to two of the authors at the end of that book, and he was describing to us the real trauma involved in doing their research. That after 2 years of doing it, that he's like, man, we were struggling to sleep and we weren't coping well, and I'm going, this is PTSD. This is post-traumatic stress for sure. And that seeing that violence and the trauma that happens from that is really real. And like you said, it humanized, right? So this is a real person doing real work and earnestly doing it and dealing with the repercussions of it. Yeah. And again, even if you end up disagreeing about the ideas, when we see the humanity in someone whose ideas we disagree with, we see their humanness first, and then that brings our hearts closer together.
Yeah. And again, your wife, Laura, we were talking yesterday about how, it can be a challenge when someone is coming from a very different point of view or experience than you, especially if it sort of contradicts what you believe in certain ways. That's the most important time to pause and to open your mind and even your heart, perhaps, to understanding, why does that person hold that position? They probably hold that position for a reason. Again, doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but they're not saying that for no reason.
Well, and I value myself. I kind of, I see myself in some sense as not necessarily a researcher, but I like the scientific method in that one of the best parts of a scientist is that they are committed to their understanding being informed by as much evidence as they can possibly gather.
True.
And when I get new evidence, I don't discard it as that doesn't fit my model. I have to adjust my model to fit the evidence.
Right.
So when somebody's lived experience is different than what I say, well, this shouldn't happen. Wait, but it does. Ouch. Okay, wait, I gotta, and sometimes just sitting in the discomfort, right? Just to go, okay, I believe this, but I do recognize that there's other experience and it makes me uncomfortable. And I'm just gonna sit in that discomfort and just let it stew. I hate that. I don't like it at all. I love certainty. Right? Certainty makes my life so easy. But that's not how it works sometimes. So it was valuable. I'm glad we went.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. It's been great to spend some time with you. I appreciate you taking some time on my much smaller channel.
My pleasure.
And hopefully it won't be another 7 years before I get to sit down in the HQ again.
Yes, and next time you need to bring Mrs. Yamane as well. And we can hang out and show you the valley a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. As always, I will put links to John's channels and other things he's up to in the show notes. If you have anybody you want me to talk to, any questions, comments, obviously, really appreciate that sort of engagement. And as always, please share this if you find any value in it, because that helps me to reach more people. Yeah, super. Excuse me. Hold on, I gotta get a water.
Good thing for editing software.
Yeah. No, I'm going to keep all this in there.